Welcome to Zoe Stories. Pilot to flight attendant overnight. My life changed. His name is Marco Reyes. By day, he wears a crisp white shirt, a navy blazer with gold wings pinned over his heart, and an easy professional smile that puts nervous passengers at ease. He's 32, 5'10" with callous hands from changing flight controls, and a voice that people say could sell safety procedures in 5 languages. For 10 years, Marco built his life around schedules, runways, and the ritual of departure. The coffee at 3 o'clock, the worn leather bag, the final pre-flight check that never felt like a chore but like something sacred. Piloting isn't just a job for him. It's the way he organizes a chaotic inner life. Turbulence keeps things simple. Altitude, attitude, airspeed. But there's an invisible second suitcase in his closet, folded neatly between uniforms. It's stuffed with an entirely different kind of luggage: silk blouses that smell faintly of gardenia, a pair of heels that click like a secret, a wig whose synthetic curls glint under his bedroom lamp. Marco has been living in 2 timetables for years. One schedule is public and measured in flight hours and layovers. The other is private, measured in the slow, careful rituals of becoming someone else when the apartment is quiet and the city is asleep. He didn't grow into cross-dressing overnight. The urge arrived like a soft static that refused to be ignored, first as curiosity in college dressing rooms, then as an almost sacred way to try on another version of himself. Sometimes it was aesthetics, the effortless sweep of eyeliner, the way a dress could fold the corners of his jaw into gentleness. Other times it was necessity, a pressure relief valve after a too long layover, a quiet act that grounded him when the world demanded he be stern. He knows the difference between performance and identity, and at times he refuses to name either. To Marco, this private ritual is both art and oxygen. Marco's apartment is a small, efficient 2-bedroom near the airport, one room for laundry and the other for ambitions. It smells faintly of jet fuel and jasmine because he likes to spray a light floral on his cross-dressing clothes as a deliberate act of contrast, the smell of machines and the smell of softness colliding. The living room is dominated by a window that frames a river of runway lights. At night, landings stitch the horizon with patience, and he watches them as if each illuminated approach is a message. The city hums beyond that glass, indifferent and alive. Mia is the bright, complicated center of Marco's life. They met at a crew party 3 years ago. She was laughing too loud by the snack table, a freelance graphic designer with dyed copper hair and a warped sense of timing that somehow matched Marco's late nights. Mia is not a stranger to unconventional lives. She's owned tiny studios, chaotic lovers, and a heart that bears small, precise scars. She loves Marco fiercely. Her love is pragmatic in the way she makes coffee for him before his red-eye flights, and furious in the way she defends him when colleagues make offhand jokes. But she is also the reason Marco has cultivated secrecy. She loves the pilot, not the private persona that blooms under the lamp. The thought of confessing terrifies him in a way turbulence never could. Their apartment is threaded with a gentle intimacy, mismatched mugs in the kitchen, a plant Mia keeps pleading with him not to overwater, a stack of plain manuals on a bookshelf next to a lipstick he pretends not to notice. Marco's cross-dressing has not been an open secret between them. Mia knows Marco has a private life. She knows he likes to disappear for hours into odd jobs and hobbies. But she doesn't know the rhythms of the silk blouse or the exact sound of his heels on the hardwood. Marco tells himself he's protecting something, a fragile, beautiful part of himself that wouldn't survive the blunt light of truth. But sometimes protecting feels a lot like hiding. There are practical reasons for secrecy too. Pilots, in the public imagination, are anchors of authority. Marco has internalized that image until it feels like bone. Airline culture has changed, but rumor and stigma still travel like static among crews and passengers. To risk ridicule, to risk Mia's confusion, feels like jeopardizing everything he's worked for. The respect of his team, the seniority he's nearly earned, the flights that pay their mortgage. He's a man who measures danger by checklists. Is it safe? Is not just about weather. It is about identity. That fear hangs in the background of Marco's days. At work, he toggles between warmth and steel. He greets passengers with a practiced glint in his eye, calms crying toddlers with a soft joke, watches storms on the radar with professional hunger. Off-duty, he rehearses tiny rebellions, a smoky eye in the mirror, a kitten heel purchased online that arrives in a box he opens with a furtive hand. The act of sliding into a dress is both a theft and a homecoming. The fabric reshapes his posture and loosens the tightness in his chest. When he layers on mascara, he learns new ways to be seen. On the night the story begins, Marco should be sleeping. He has a 4-day stretch of flights ahead, the kind that split the week into duty stations and small hotels. Mia is at a friend's dinner across town and isn't due back until past midnight. The apartment is quiet enough to hear the refrigerator pulse. Moonlight pools on the floor, painting the heels in pale blue. It's the kind of silence that invites confession, or at least temptation. Marco stands before the closet and feels the old tug between the pilot and the persona, between what's necessary and what's only for him. He remembers a particular conversation he had with Mia months earlier, a thread of vulnerability he almost unraveled. They'd been drinking cold wine on the balcony, and Mia had said, "Tell me everything, Marco. No filters." He wanted to. He wanted the honesty that most people think should be simple. But he remembered the rush of a layover call, the ways secrets had pulled people apart in his life. He folded the words away and poured another glass. Now, tonight, the airport lights blink like a pulse out of sync with his. A blouse hangs over a chair like a small white flag. Somewhere on his phone is a video tutorial about contouring. Marco tells himself he will be careful. He will not be reckless. He will only steal a few hours. But there's a brighter, more dangerous whisper under that. The ritual promises something beyond thrill, a completeness, a glimpse of a life in which the pilot's uniform does not have to hide what lives underneath. He imagines walking through the apartment as both of them, steady and soft at once, and feels the impossible relief of being entirely seen. The introduction closes on that hush, Marco standing alone, fingertips brushing the fabric of a dress, the weight of the wings on his chest suddenly heavy and small. Outside, a plane cries across the night. Inside, the apartment holds its breath. He slides the dress from the chair, and the click of heels in the hallway seems far away, or maybe alarmingly near. This is the small motion that tips a decade of balancing into a single moment. The story that follows will test everything he's protected, his career, his heart, and the fragile trust with Mia. For now, the threshold is clear, and the choice is his. Marco's fingers hesitated on the hanger. The simple act of pulling a dress free from the shadows felt like crossing an invisible border. The fabric, soft and cool, slipped through his hands like a secret shared only with the dark. It wasn't extravagant, just a pale blush dress that Mia had once worn to a wedding 2 summers ago. She had tossed it into a donation box months back, but Marco had quietly rescued it before it left the house. He told himself he'd wanted to study the fabric, the way it caught light, the way it moved, but tonight, as he held it up to his chest, he could no longer pretend. The apartment was dim, lit only by the reflection of runway lights bouncing through the window. Marco took a breath that felt both steady and trembling. His pilot's uniform hung neatly on the back of the chair like a loyal soldier awaiting orders, while the dress in his hand whispered rebellion. He laid everything out with precision, the same ritualistic calm he used before a flight. Dress, wig, light makeup kit, heels, and a compact mirror. Each item placed deliberately, like instruments in a cockpit before takeoff. It was a strange symmetry, control and surrender sharing the same air. He stripped slowly, folding his uniform neatly, as if respect for it might absolve his guilt. The moment his bare skin met the soft lining of the dress, a shiver climbed his spine. The sensation was electric, silk against muscle, gentleness against everything the world expected him to be. The sleeves hugged his arms tightly, the skirt brushed his thighs, and his reflection started to shimmer into someone else. In the mirror, Marco was no longer entirely Marco. His jaw softened under the subtle contouring he'd practiced in silence for months. The wig framed his face, golden brown waves falling across his cheeks like a quiet apology to the man he was pretending not to be. The lipstick trembled in his hand before it found his mouth, a hesitant sweep of color that made him exhale sharply when he saw the result. "Who are you?" he whispered to his reflection. He didn't have an answer, but the woman in the mirror smiled back, uncertain, fragile, but alive. For a few minutes he just looked, studied. The curve of his neck under the collarbone shimmered in the half-light. He turned slightly, watching the skirt flutter with movement, the heels lifting him into a new posture, lighter, poised. The sensation was intoxicating. His heartbeat drummed faster, and for the first time in weeks, his mind was free of checklists and flight paths. He took a tentative step toward the hallway, the click of the heels echoing like heartbeats. He'd always imagined walking in them would feel clumsy, but somehow his body adjusted, a rhythm emerging, soft and deliberate. There was power in it. Vulnerable, yes, but power nonetheless. As he walked past the kitchen, his reflection caught in the glass cabinet. Not Marco the pilot, but someone else. Someone beautiful. The realization hit him like altitude pressure. His chest rose and fell rapidly, an emotional turbulence building inside him. He wasn't just cross-dressing tonight. He was becoming. It wasn't about deceit anymore, it was about release. He found himself standing in front of the window, looking out at the airfield. The lights shimmered like scattered jewels, and he whispered softly, "I'm flying too." The apartment was utterly silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint roar of engines in the distance. For a while, it felt perfect, peaceful, even. He danced quietly to the hum of nothing, the skirt swaying around his knees. There was no fear, only freedom. Then came the flicker. A phone vibration on the table, a text notification. The sudden sound shattered the moment like glass. He froze. It was Mia. "Dinner running late. Might head home early if it gets boring, love you." The words lit up his phone like a warning light on a dashboard. Marco's heart lurched. The transformation that had felt liberating seconds ago now pulsed with danger. He could almost hear his own heartbeat louder than the engines outside. He glanced at the clock. It was only 10:42 p.m. She could be home within 20 minutes. Maybe less. His stomach tightened. The fear was immediate and physical. He grabbed the hem of his dress, instinctively ready to pull it off, but something stopped him. That same quiet whisper that had drawn him to this moment now pushed back against his panic. Not yet. He didn't want to erase it so soon. Not when he'd just started feeling whole. Marco looked back at his reflection, lipstick slightly uneven, eyes shining. He could change back in 5 minutes if he wanted to, but a deeper voice inside him asked, "Why should you always have to hide?" He walked toward the bathroom mirror, steadying his breath. The longer he looked, the more he saw layers peel away, not just makeup, but years of repression. He traced his finger over his cheekbone and whispered, "Maybe she's always been there." The clock ticked louder. 10:47. He snapped out of it and hurried toward the bedroom, heels clacking on the wooden floor. He pulled open drawers, looking for wipes, something to remove the makeup fast, but the adrenaline made his hands shake. He dropped the lipstick cap, it rolled under the bed. He bent down, heart hammering, and caught sight of the suitcase under the frame, his pilot bag, half-zipped. Inside it, a small mirror gleamed back at him, reflecting the woman he'd become. It was a surreal image, a pilot's cap beside a tube of mascara. The two worlds inches apart. "Marco," he whispered, almost laughing in disbelief at himself. "What are you doing?" He stood up and stared at the mirror again. For the first time, he didn't see it as ridiculous. He saw it as human. And that made it harder to undo. He turned off the main light and sat on the bed, staring out the window. The city blinked in silence. He imagined what Mia would say if she saw him like this. The thought made his throat tighten. Would she laugh? Be disgusted? Would she leave? But then another thought crept in. What if she understood? What if she saw the same beauty he was seeing now? That faint, trembling hope warred against the rising panic in his chest. Another message arrived. Leaving soon. Should be home in 15. The word struck like a jolt of lightning. 15 minutes. That was all the time he had to erase this version of himself, or face the truth head-on. He stood up abruptly, the dress brushing his legs as he began to move quickly, every step heavy with dread and exhilaration. The bathroom light flared on, reflecting his painted face, his trembling hands. He grabbed a towel, wet it, pressed it to his cheek. The red lipstick smudged across his skin like a bruise. The mirror didn't lie. He was caught between two lives, two reflections, neither willing to disappear first. Outside, a distant thunder rolled across the airport. Inside, Marco's world was about to change forever. And as he stood there, dripping water onto the bathroom floor, a single realization echoed in his mind. He had 15 minutes to decide who he truly was. The ticking clock became unbearable. Every second that passed sounded like a countdown to exposure. Marco's heart pounded so hard it felt like turbulence in his chest. He had scrubbed at his face until his skin burned, but the faint traces of makeup still clung stubbornly to his lashes. The lipstick smear refused to disappear completely, leaving a ghost of color that betrayed the secret he was trying to erase. He glanced around the bathroom, wipes scattered, the towel damp, his reflection trembling between two identities. The pale pink dress was still clinging to his body, hugging every breath. He hadn't even taken it off yet. And now, time was slipping through his fingers like sand. Think, Marco. Think. His voice shook. He moved fast, peeled off the wig first, tossing it into the closet. The curls tumbled to the floor, as if mocking him. Next came the heels. They clattered against the hardwood like confessions. The noise was too loud. He froze, listening. Outside, a car rolled by. Not Mia's, not yet. He exhaled shakily, forcing himself to focus. The zipper on the back of the dress snagged. He tugged, but it wouldn't budge. The fabric resisted, caught between the teeth of the zipper. Panic surged higher. He twisted his arm, awkwardly, desperate. No, he muttered, tugging harder. The zipper held. His skin prickled with sweat. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway cut through the quiet like a siren. His stomach dropped. It was Mia. He heard the faint jingle of her keys. Unmistakable. The sound was distant but real. God, please not now, he whispered. He yanked one last time. The zipper gave way with a violent rip. The sound echoed through the room like thunder. He nearly stumbled backward. He pulled the dress off, wadding it up and shoving it under the bed. His chest rose and fell in ragged breaths. Footsteps on the stairs. The click of the front door unlocking. Marco darted into the bathroom mirror, his face flushed, eyeliner faintly smudged under his eyes. He grabbed a washcloth, wiping frantically. Water splashed over the sink. Marco. Mia's voice floated through the apartment. Light, cheerful, completely unaware. You still awake? He froze. Yeah. His voice cracked. He cleared his throat. Yeah, just, showering. He flicked on the shower for effect, steam beginning to rise around him. Oh, good, she called back. I brought leftovers. I thought you'd be hungry. Thanks, he yelled, heart hammering. The sound of her footsteps moved toward the kitchen. He could picture her dropping her bag, humming softly as she unpacked. That familiar domestic sound that usually soothed him now felt like a ticking bomb. Marco looked down at the sink, smears of foundation, lipstick, powder. Evidence everywhere. He turned the faucet on full blast, scrubbing the porcelain with trembling hands. The steam fogged the mirror, hiding his reflection. It felt symbolic, like even the universe didn't want him to see himself right now. He threw the used wipes into the trash, then hesitated. No. Mia sometimes took the bathroom trash out in the morning. He grabbed the entire bag, tied it quickly, and shoved it into the larger garbage bin under the sink. His breathing came in shallow gasps. The smell of her perfume drifted down the hallway, jasmine and citrus, colliding with the faint floral scent still clinging to the dress fibers in the air. The blend made his stomach twist. Everything okay in there? Mia asked, her voice closer now. Why, yeah. Just rinsing off. Be out in a sec. She laughed softly. You sound weird. Did you fall asleep in the shower again? He forced a chuckle. Maybe. Her footsteps retreated. Relief flooded him, but only for a moment. He still had to hide everything else. The wig, the makeup kit, the heels. He tiptoed out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around his waist, heart slamming so hard it made his pulse throb in his neck. He moved with the silent precision of a man defusing a bomb. Each step toward the closet was calculated, every breath held. The living room lights flicked on. He could see the glow under the doorframe. Mia was unpacking food, humming along to a song on her phone. Marco crouched by the bed and pulled out the dress, stuffing it into the laundry hamper beneath his uniforms. The wig went into a shoebox, the heels into a suitcase he hadn't used since his last European flight. He wiped the floor where water had dripped, straightened the covers, and checked the mirror again. He looked almost normal, except his eyelashes were still a touch darker than usual. He could only hope she wouldn't notice. Marco. His breath caught. Yeah. Can you grab some plates? I'm starving. Sure, he replied, forcing steadiness. He threw on a plain t-shirt and joggers, checking one last time that the coast was clear. His hands still trembled as he walked out into the kitchen. Mia stood by the counter, smiling, her copper hair catching the light. She looked casual and warm, holding a takeout container in one hand. Wow, you really were showering, she said playfully, glancing at his damp hair. Yeah, he said quickly. Just needed to cool off. She leaned in and kissed his cheek, and for a terrifying second, he thought she'd smell the faint scent of his foundation. But she didn't. She smiled, then handed him a fork. They sat together at the table, eating in easy silence. For anyone else, it would have looked like a normal couple's night in. But inside Marco's chest, everything was burning. His mind replayed the past 20 minutes like a near-death experience. Dinner was boring, Mia said, rolling her eyes. Glad I came home early. You'd have hated it. He forced a smile. Probably. She leaned her chin on her hand, watching him. You're quiet tonight. You okay?
His throat went dry.
Just tired. Long day. Something like that. Her eyes softened. You know, sometimes I wonder what goes on in that head of yours. You get this faraway look, like you're somewhere else entirely. The comment cut deeper than she realized. He looked down at his food, hiding the flicker of guilt. Guess I'm just thinking about tomorrow's flight. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand gently. You worry too much, Captain Reyes. He smiled faintly at the nickname, but the warmth that usually followed it didn't come. Instead, a different image haunted him. The reflection in the mirror, the soft dress, the quiet freedom he'd felt moments before she came home. That person felt alive. This one felt like a ghost in his own skin. Hey, Mia said, snapping him out of it. You sure you're okay? He nodded too quickly.
Yeah.
Totally fine.
She didn't look convinced.
Her gaze lingered, studying him in silence. Then she smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. Okay, Captain. She got up and started cleaning the table, humming again. Marco sat frozen, staring at her back, torn between relief and regret. He had survived the close call, but a part of him wished he hadn't, because hiding was starting to feel worse than being caught. He looked down at his hands, the same hands that held control columns at 30,000 feet, now trembling from something far smaller, far more human. The secret had grown heavier tonight. It wasn't just a hobby anymore. It was a heartbeat he couldn't silence. And as Mia turned to him with a soft smile, saying, "Don't forget to set your alarm," he realized that the real turbulence was only beginning. Morning arrived with the smell of coffee and the low hum of an airplane passing overhead. Marco had barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the mirror again. The woman staring back, half terrified, half free. The memory clung to him like perfume. Mia was already up, padding around the kitchen in her slippers. Her copper hair was tied messily, her robe swishing as she moved. Morning, Captain, she said with a teasing grin. Sleep okay? He forced a yawn. More or less. Rough dreams. Yeah, he muttered. Something like that. She poured him a cup of coffee, sliding it across the counter. You've been quiet lately. Even before last night. He took a sip, eyes fixed on the dark liquid. Just work. You know how it gets. Mia leaned against the counter, studying him. You didn't answer my text last night for 20 minutes. I almost called. His heart skipped a beat.
Sorry.
I was in the shower. Her brow furrowed slightly, like she was replaying his tone in her mind.
Right.
The shower. She smiled faintly and turned away, but the air between them had shifted. Fragile now, stretched thin. When she went to the bedroom to get dressed, Marco exhaled a long, shaky breath. The adrenaline of last night had faded, leaving a dull ache in his chest. He could still smell faint traces of foundation on his skin, despite all the scrubbing. He checked the mirror that morning, his lashes still darker than usual, though not enough for anyone but him to notice, or so he hoped. He tried to act normal, packed his pilot's bag, checked his schedule, smiled when she kissed him goodbye. But as he left the apartment, Mia's gaze lingered on him longer than usual. The flight from Karachi to Dubai was smooth, routine. Blue skies, cooperative passengers, nothing to distract him, except his own mind. Marco stared at the horizon through the cockpit window, but all he could think about was the reflection he'd seen in the mirror. The softness, the calmness, like he'd been piloting his own truth for the first time. Every mile made him feel further from it. When he landed, the messages started coming in from Mia. Hope the flight went okay. We should go out for dinner when you're back. Also, weird question. Did you mess with my makeup bag? Marco froze. His pulse surged instantly. He read it again. Did you mess with my makeup bag? His mind raced. Had she seen something? He had used one of her lipsticks, a muted coral she rarely wore, and he'd left it on the counter before shoving everything away. He was sure he'd put it back correctly.
Wasn't he?
No, why? He texted back, forcing nonchalance. Just seemed moved around. Maybe I'm imagining it. He exhaled in relief. But the relief didn't last long. That night, in the sterile quiet of the hotel room, Marco found himself scrolling through his photos. Not flight memories or crew dinners, but old mirror selfies. Secret ones. Some were blurry, taken years ago when he'd first experimented. Others more recent. He stopped at one from 2 months ago. A black skirt, a soft cardigan, his expression calm but uncertain. He had never shown them to anyone. They existed like fragments of another life, stored in the hidden folder of his phone.
He almost deleted them that night.
Almost. But something inside him refused. Mia was home alone. Marco had an early flight back. As she cleaned the bedroom, humming softly, she noticed the wig box, slightly ajar under the bed. She frowned, crouched, and pulled it out. Inside was the wig, golden brown, its curls carefully arranged. She stared at it for a long moment. Her mind scrambled for an explanation. Maybe it belonged to a costume? Maybe Marco had bought it for a prank or a party. But there was no upcoming party. No joke he'd mentioned. Her eyes drifted toward the closet. Something caught her attention. The faint scent of floral perfume. Not hers. Not his. She stood there in silence, her expression tightening. She didn't say anything right away. She just thought. When Marco returned that evening, exhausted, suitcase in hand, Mia greeted him with a calm smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Hey you, she said softly. Hey. He leaned in to kiss her cheek, but she stepped back slightly, pretending to adjust her robe. How was the flight?
Fine.
Why? Just wondering. She gave a short laugh. Also, random question again. Do you have something you want to tell me? Marco froze. The question landed like a gut punch. What do you mean? He asked carefully. She tilted her head. You've just been off lately. Distracted. And I found something odd while cleaning. His throat tightened. What kind of something? Mia studied his face. A wig. The word hung in the air like static. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. She waited. The silence between them stretched too long. Finally, he managed, It's not what you think. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Then what is it? I bought it for a Halloween thing. With some friends from work. Mia smiled faintly, but her eyes didn't believe him. You? Halloween? He forced a chuckle. Yeah, it was going to be a joke thing, but it fell through. Her expression softened slightly, though her eyes still glinted with quiet suspicion. Okay, just didn't expect to find that, that's all. He nodded quickly, eager to end the conversation. Yeah, no big deal. But the energy in the room had changed. She didn't bring it up again that night. But she kept watching him. Every gesture, every look, every hesitation. And Marco could feel it. Her eyes on him when he thought she wasn't looking. Her slight pauses when she kissed him goodnight. The way her tone shifted from warm to analytical in conversation. It was the kind of tension that crept slowly, like fog. He tried to distract himself, focused on work, pretended everything was normal. But inside, his heart raced every time he opened the closet, every time he saw her near it. He knew one thing for sure now. The lie had started to crack. Marco couldn't sleep. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the city lights beyond the window. The sound of Mia's steady breathing beside him only made the silence heavier. He thought about confessing. Just saying it. Everything. The truth about the makeup, the wig, the feeling of freedom that came with it. But fear silenced him again. He imagined her reaction, confusion, disgust, anger. The possibility of losing her. He stood and walked quietly to the mirror again, careful not to wake her. His reflection was pale, tired, haunted. He whispered to himself, "You can't keep this up." And then, barely audible, "But you can't stop either." The duality tore at him until dawn. Days passed, but the air in the apartment never cleared. It grew heavier instead, thick with unspoken tension. Every sound, every silence carried weight. Marco pretended nothing had changed, but Mia's questions came sharper now, veiled behind jokes and small talk. "Did you try my new perfume? Whose foundation shade is this on the sink? You sure that's your shirt, Captain?" Each one struck like a dart, playful on the surface, but pointed beneath. He laughed them off, lied with practiced ease. But his chest ached afterward. Friday evening. Mia set the table with a little too much effort, pouring wine, lighting candles, the kind of scene that usually softened them both after long flights. But tonight, Marco knew. This wasn't dinner. This was an interrogation dressed in roses. She sat opposite him, chin resting on her hand, eyes cool but unreadable. "So," she began lightly, "you remember last weekend? When I found the wig?" He froze mid-bite.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop thinking about it. He forced a laugh. "Still on that, huh?" Her smile faded.
Yes.
"Still on that." The silence stretched, fragile as glass. She leaned forward. "Marco, I love you. But I need the truth. All of it. Please don't lie to me again." Her tone wasn't angry. That made it worse. It was calm, gentle, dangerous. He opened his mouth, words forming and collapsing before they reached his lips. "It's complicated." "Then make it simple," she said quietly. The clink of cutlery, the ticking of the wall clock, every small sound grew deafening. Finally, he whispered, "It's not another woman. I swear." "Then what?" His gaze dropped. His pulse thundered in his ears. "It's me." She frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" He swallowed. "Sometimes I dress differently. I've done it for years. It helps me think. Feel calm. Like I'm still myself." Her expression faltered. "Dress differently?" He nodded slowly. "Like a woman." The words hung between them, heavy, electric, irreversible. Mia didn't speak for a long time. Her face was unreadable, like she was watching her life rearrange itself piece by piece. Marco's heart pounded so hard he could barely breathe. "Say something," he whispered. She blinked. "I don't know what to say." He nodded. "That's fair. You've been doing this for how long?" "Since flight school," he said softly. "It started as stress relief. But it never really went away." Her lip trembled slightly, but she covered it with a sip of wine. "And you never told me." "I couldn't. You'd think I was broken." "Broken," she repeated.
No.
"Just different." "But you lied to me." "You let me think something else." "I didn't know how to tell you." She shook her head, tears filling her eyes. You could have trusted me, Marco. You could have given me the truth before I had to find it in a wig box. He lowered his head. I know. Silence again. It was unbearable this time, thick with hurt and disbelief. Then Mia rose from her chair. Her hands trembled slightly. I need air. She grabbed her coat and left before he could say another word. The door slammed, echoing through the quiet. Marco sank onto the couch, pressing his palms to his face. Every second replayed, every hesitation, every stupid lie. He had finally spoken the truth, yet somehow it didn't feel freeing. It felt like the ground had fallen away. He stood, pacing the floor. Then his eyes landed on the mirror again, the same one from that night. The reflection showed a man unraveling, eyes red, jaw clenched. He whispered, You told her. You finally told her. And yet he didn't feel like himself anymore. His hands trembled as he opened the closet door. Inside, the wig waited silently, the same soft curls reflecting the dim light. The sight drew him closer, like gravity. He reached out, fingers brushing the hair. A pulse of something strange shot through him. Relief, sadness, clarity. For once, he didn't stop himself. He dressed again, quietly, methodically. The blouse, the skirt, the soft stockings. The transformation felt like slipping into another layer of truth. His breathing slowed. When he finally looked in the mirror, he whispered the name he'd never dared speak aloud. Marina. It wasn't a costume tonight. It wasn't fantasy. It was who he was beneath the fear. The sound of the key turning in the lock snapped him back. Marco, no, Marina, froze. The door opened. Mia stood there, her eyes swollen from crying, her expression unreadable. Her gaze landed on him, or rather, her. The silence that followed was pure electricity. Neither spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the city outside. Finally, Mia stepped closer, her voice trembling. You're wearing my clothes. Marina's voice cracked. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, she said sharply, though her voice softened by the second. Just let me look at you. Mia's eyes traced her, not in disgust, not in shock, but in confusion, in wonder. I don't understand, she said finally. This is who you are? Marina nodded. Part of me. The part one never let out. Mia took a deep breath, steadying herself. You look different, but also calm. A tear rolled down Marina's cheek. Because I don't have to hide right now. For a long moment, they just stood there, two souls caught in the eye of a storm, unsure whether it would pass or destroy everything. Then Mia whispered, I need time, Marco. I need to understand this. I know, Marina said softly. Take all the time you need. She nodded slowly, turned away, and went into the bedroom. The door closed quietly, not a slam this time, but a whisper of distance. Marina sat down, staring at the flickering reflection of candlelight on the mirror.
The truth was out now.
There was no going back. And yet, deep down, amid the chaos and guilt, one fragile feeling bloomed quietly inside her. Relief. Real, terrifying, beautiful relief. The next morning came heavy and gray. Sunlight seeped through the blinds, pale and cold, the kind that made every shadow feel sharper. Marco hadn't slept. He sat at the edge of the bed, still half in Marina's reflection, half out of it. The wig lay folded neatly beside him like a confession, silent but powerful. Mia hadn't said a word since last night. She'd stayed in the bedroom with the door closed. He'd heard her crying once, muffled, brief, then silence. He kept waiting for anger, for shouting. But the quiet was worse. His phone buzzed.
He jumped.
The name on the screen made his stomach twist. Captain Reynolds. His supervisor. He hesitated before answering. Captain Marco DeLuca, he said, his voice rough. DeLuca, good. I was just checking in, Reynolds said, his voice brisk and clipped. You're on rotation next week. Just confirming your medical forms came through. Marco cleared his throat. Yes, sir. Everything's in order.
Good.
And one more thing. There's a promotional event for the company's image campaign. They're featuring staff in uniform. PR wants a few pilots and attendants together for the shoot. Optional, but looks good for the record. Marco froze. Pilots and attendants together?
Yeah.
You just have to show up, smile for a few photos, maybe a small video clip. Easy stuff. You in. He opened his mouth, words caught between two realities. The thought of standing in front of cameras in uniform, pretending everything was normal. It felt unbearable. Sure, he said finally. I'll be there. Good man. See you then. The line clicked off. He lowered the phone slowly. His reflection in the black screen wasn't Marco's anymore. It was Marina's eyes staring back, uncertain, but quietly defiant. Later that day, Mia emerged. Her hair was unbrushed, eyes tired, face bare of makeup, something rare for her. She didn't look angry now, just distant. Coffee? She asked softly. He blinked, surprised.
Yeah.
Please. They sat across from each other in the quiet kitchen. No accusations this time. No lies either. Finally, she said, You said it started in flight school? He nodded. Yeah. And it's not sexual?
No.
It's not that. It's emotional. Calming. Sometimes I feel like the person in the mirror isn't pretending. Like she's the real me, and the pilot uniform is the disguise. Mia looked down. That's a lot to take in. I know, he whispered. I never meant to hurt you. You didn't hurt me, she said softly. You just changed what I thought I knew. He exhaled shakily. I'm still me. I know, she said, voice cracking slightly. I'm just trying to figure out who that is. They sat in silence, sipping lukewarm coffee. Then Mia reached across the table and placed her hand over his. If this is who you are, you don't have to hide it from me anymore. But you can't live two lives forever, Marco. One of them will break you. Her words lingered like smoke. That evening, Mia came home holding a garment bag, sleek, silver, branded with Aerolux Airlines. I went by the PR office, she said. They're missing one female attendant for the shoot. One of the girls got sick. He looked up, startled. So, she said carefully, maybe this is your chance to stop hiding. Try stepping into the role you've been imagining. He frowned. You're joking. I'm not, she said. No one would know. You have the build, the posture, the presence. With the right wig, the makeup, the uniform, you could pass easily. You'd be one of us. Marco's heart slammed in his chest. Mia, that's insane. Is it? She said. You want to know what it's like to be her, right? To be Marina? Then do it. Just once. Her tone wasn't teasing. It was sharp, testing him, maybe punishing him, or maybe daring him to be honest. He couldn't tell which. Hours later, the apartment became a silent studio of secrets. Mia laid everything out. The flight attendant uniform, perfectly pressed, a wig matching the soft brown of her own hair, makeup kits, shoes polished to a mirror shine. She crossed her arms. Well, Captain, let's see what your other uniform looks like. Marco's breath caught. His hands trembled as he touched the fabric, smooth, light, a world away from the thick, formal pilot's jacket he'd worn for years. Slowly, he began to change. Mia helped, guiding him wordlessly. She pinned the wig, brushed the curls, adjusted the blouse. Her fingers were steady, professional, but her eyes flickered with something deeper, sorrow, maybe curiosity, maybe both. When the final touch of lipstick went on, she stepped back. Look. He turned toward the mirror. For a long, silent moment, even he couldn't breathe. The woman staring back wasn't just a reflection. She was him, but freer. Her shoulders softer, her eyes brighter. A version of himself that had lived only in dreams until now. Mia whispered, You look beautiful. He turned to her, voice trembling. I don't know what to say. Say nothing, she said. Just feel it. He nodded, tears filling his eyes. For the first time, he didn't feel like a pilot pretending to be calm. He felt like a person finally seen. Mia lifted her phone. Mind if I take one picture? He hesitated. Why?
To remember this, she said.
To remind both of us what truth looks like. He nodded slowly. The flash clicked. The image appeared. Marina in a crisp uniform, hands folded neatly, eyes caught between fear and freedom. But in the reflection of the mirror behind him, another truth stared back. Marco's pilot uniform hanging in the background like a ghost. Mia lowered the phone, studying the photo. Her expression shifted, unreadable. You realize, she said softly, if anyone sees this, your career's over. I know, he said quietly. That's why no one can. She nodded, but something in her tone made him uneasy. Of course, no one will. But as she walked away, her thumb brushed the phone screen, the image still glowing faintly. And for the first time, Marina didn't know whether to feel safe or terrified. The photo sat quietly in Mia's phone gallery, one image among thousands, yet somehow it pulsed with its own heartbeat. Marina in full uniform, hair brushed to perfection, smile trembling but radiant. Marco didn't know it yet, but that image would change everything. The next morning, the air between them was calm.
Too calm.
Mia hummed softly as she poured coffee, her voice smooth, distant. Marco sat at the counter, still half asleep, half anxious, staring at her every movement. He couldn't tell if her calm was forgiveness or the silence before another storm. You look better today, she said, glancing at him briefly. Lighter.
He nodded.
I feel better. Thank you for last night. For letting me. She interrupted softly. For letting her exist, you mean?
He paused.
Yeah, for letting her exist. Her lips curved into something between a smile and a sigh. She's beautiful, Marco. You should be proud. That should have comforted him. Instead, it scared him because her tone carried something else underneath. Something like finality. His phone buzzed mid-breakfast. It was from a coworker, Liam, one of the co-pilots he'd trained with. Hey bro, saw something weird on Insta. You, in a new promo thing?
Eyes.
Marco frowned. What do you mean? Liam replied almost instantly. Someone posted a behind-the-scenes pic from the airline's PR shoot. Thought I saw you or your twin sister, LOL. A cold wave rolled through Marco's body. He froze.
What?
What pic? Hold up, sending it. The image loaded, and time stopped. It wasn't exactly the same photo Mia took, but close. Same wig, same uniform, same trembling smile. It had been cropped slightly, blurred at the edges, but he could tell. That was him. Marco's fingers trembled as he stared at the screen. What the hell, he whispered. He looked up sharply. Mia was watching him. Something wrong, she asked, too casually. He swallowed hard. Did you send that photo to anyone? Her expression didn't change. Why would I? Because someone just posted a picture from last night. Her eyes widened, but only slightly. That's impossible. Don't play with me, Mia. Her calm cracked, just barely. I didn't post it, Marco. I swear I didn't. But I might have shown it to someone. Briefly. He shot to his feet. You what? I was upset. I needed to talk to someone. I showed it to my friend Clara. She works in PR. I didn't think. You didn't think. His voice broke. You just handed her this? My whole life? My career? Marco. She promised she wouldn't tell anyone. Well, she did. The words hit like lightning. Mia flinched. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing frantically. If the airline sees that photo, I'm finished. You realize that, right? Pilots don't survive scandals like this. She whispered. It's not a scandal. It's just a picture. To you, maybe. To them? It's a headline. Pilot cross-dresses as female attendant. They'll call me unstable, unprofessional. You know how this world works. Mia's eyes filled with tears. I just wanted to understand you. By showing me off like a joke? Her face went pale. That's not fair. Neither is losing everything I've worked for. He grabbed his jacket and stormed out, the slam of the door echoing down the hallway. He drove straight to the airport, heart racing, every breath shallow. The terminal buzzed with the usual chaos, rolling luggage, boarding calls, laughter. But today it all sounded distant. Hollow. He walked through the staff entrance, trying to look composed. But the moment he stepped into the crew lounge, he felt it. The stares. The sudden hush. Two attendants stopped whispering the moment he entered. Someone's phone screen dimmed quickly. He could feel it, the rumors spreading faster than turbulence. Liam stood up from a corner chair. Marco. Marco forced a steady voice.
Don't.
Not here. Look, man, it's not as bad as it looks, Liam whispered. People are just curious. Some think it's fake. And the others? They're calling it brave. Marco blinked, startled. Brave?
Yeah.
A lot of the crew actually think it's kind of cool. The caption said something like, redefining uniforms, breaking barriers. People think it's part of a diversity campaign. Marco felt dizzy. Wait, what? Who posted it? Official Aerolux account. It's everywhere, dude. Hashtag New Wings. He stared blankly. They think I did this on purpose? Apparently, yeah. The PR department hasn't denied it. Guess they liked the attention. By the time Marco reached his locker, his phone was buzzing nonstop. Texts, missed calls, social media mentions. The image had gone viral overnight. Thousands of comments, hearts, retweets. Whoever she is, she's stunning. Is that the same person as Captain DeLuca? Incredible. Pilot to flight attendant. Talk about versatility. It should have been funny. It wasn't. He felt like his chest was caving in. He opened the locker and saw both uniforms hanging side by side, his crisp pilot jacket and the spare flight attendant dress that Mia had ironed for the shoot. Side by side. Male and female. Two lives. One impossible choice. He touched the pilot stripes with trembling fingers. I worked my whole life for this, he whispered. Then his eyes fell on the dress, soft, elegant, familiar. And yet, this feels like the only part that's real. The door creaked open behind him. It was his supervisor, Captain Reynolds. DeLuca, he said quietly. My office.
Now.
The morning light poured through the blinds like a silent confession, revealing every glittering trace of the life Marco had tried to hide. The makeup brushes, the crumpled stockings, the half-open suitcase filled with women's uniforms, everything looked like evidence from a crime scene he had committed against himself. Marco stood before the mirror, staring at the reflection that refused to obey him anymore. Last night, he could still tell himself it was an experiment, that once he took everything off, he would be himself again. But now, as the early flight call echoed from his phone, something was off. His hair was longer, his features softer, his body undeniably changed. He reached up, trembling, touching his face. No, this can't be real, he whispered, voice faint and unmistakably feminine. He rushed to the bathroom, heart racing. The reflection followed him like a ghost that had stolen his body. His jawline, sharper yesterday, was now gently curved. His Adam's apple was gone. His hands, delicate, trembling, no longer fit his pilot's gloves. He pulled open a drawer, desperate, searching for anything normal. His ID, his uniform badge, his pilot wings. But even the photo on the badge, the one he'd used for years, had changed. It was her face now. The same one staring back from the mirror. Terror set in like a storm. He dropped the badge, stepping back. What the hell is happening to me? The apartment door buzzed suddenly, a sharp, electric sound that sliced through the silence. Marco froze. No one ever came this early. Slowly, he approached the door and opened it just a crack. A woman stood outside, tall, composed, wearing a crisp Navy flight attendant uniform. Her smile was knowing, her eyes sharp like she'd been waiting for this moment. Good morning, Captain, she said sweetly, though there was mockery in her tone. Or should I say, Miss Marcia? His blood ran cold. What did you call me? He asked. The woman stepped inside uninvited, heels clicking against the marble floor. You don't remember me, do you? That's all right. You wouldn't. You were too busy mocking me back when you were still the star pilot. She glanced around the room, eyes landing on the suitcase of women's uniforms. Looks like you've already settled into your new role quite nicely. He shook his head. backing away. I don't understand. Who are you? She smiled. Just someone you underestimated. Someone who warned you not to mess with the wrong people. Her voice dropped, laced with satisfaction. You wanted control, power, prestige. But that's not what you needed. You needed humility, empathy. And now, fate decided to teach you that lesson, as one of us. Us. The woman gestured toward the uniform. Flight attendants. The ones you used to look down on. Marco's mind spun. This was madness, some twisted dream, some cruel prank. He reached out to grab her, to shake sense into her, but she simply smirked. Careful, she warned. You wouldn't want to break a nail. And before his eyes, his reflection in the mirror behind her shimmered again, the masculine fragments fading further. His hair spilled over his shoulders in long waves. His chest swelled beneath his loose shirt, buttons straining. His voice cracked when he gasped, soft, breathy, completely transformed. He stumbled backward, clutching his chest in disbelief. This isn't real. Oh, it's very real, the woman said calmly, walking toward him. And the best part? You have a flight to catch. I can't go like this, he screamed. You don't have a choice. She handed him the same pink badge he'd found earlier, now glowing faintly, like it was alive. Flight 302 departs in 2 hours. Gate 14. Uniforms ready in the closet. Don't be late. Marco stared at the badge. Marcia Rivera, Senior Flight Attendant, printed neatly across it. His throat tightened. Why me? The woman's smile softened, almost pitying. Because you never believed what it meant to be on the other side. Now you'll live it. Every glance, every judgment, every expectation. And maybe one day, when you've learned enough, you'll understand. She turned to leave, pausing at the door. Oh, and one more thing. Don't try to reverse it. The moment you step on that plane, your fate's sealed. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving Marco trembling alone. He fell to the floor, chest heaving, mind spinning in disbelief. Every instinct screamed to fight it, to rip off the uniform, to call for help, to prove this was a dream. But something deep inside, a strange, chilling certainty, told him it wasn't. He rose slowly, eyes landing on the flight attendant uniform hanging neatly in the closet. The skirt swayed gently, like it was waiting for him. Marcia, he whispered, testing the name. It felt foreign, yet eerily natural on his tongue. His phone buzzed again, a reminder. Flight 302, boarding soon. He looked at the uniform one last time, hands trembling as he reached out. The moment his fingers brushed the fabric, he felt it, a pulse, like the uniform itself was alive, binding him to a destiny he couldn't escape. And for the first time, as he slipped into the navy skirt and heels, he saw her in the mirror, not Marco pretending, but Marcia becoming. As she fixed her hair and painted on her lipstick with shaking hands, she whispered through tears. Maybe this is my punishment, or maybe my beginning. The plane roared in the distance. Her flight, her fate, was waiting. The passenger, who knew too much. Marco woke to a knock at the door, sharp, rhythmic, almost impatient. The clock read 5:17 a.m. He froze. No one visited him this early. Not even his co-pilot, not even his ex. His reflection in the mirror caught his eye, last night's makeup faintly smudged under unfamiliar lashes, hair still perfectly curled. The perfume lingering on his skin wasn't his. It was hers, the same scent from that strange night when everything started to spiral. Another knock. He grabbed his robe, trying to hide the lace slip underneath, and approached the door cautiously. Who is it? He asked, voice shaking. Flight control, a man's voice answered. Captain Rivera? He froze. Captain Rivera? That wasn't his name. He opened the door slightly. A man stood there, tall, clean-shaven, wearing an airport operations badge. His eyes flicked over Marco, from the robe to the smudged lipstick, but he didn't react. Instead, he handed him a sealed envelope. You've been reassigned, the man said flatly. Report to Terminal 3 in uniform. Gate 24. You're late. Wait. Marco started, but the man had already turned and disappeared down the hall. He tore open the envelope. Inside was a boarding pass, a contract, and a glossy ID badge that made his heart stop. Marcia Rivera, senior flight attendant, Flight 782. Her face.
His body.
The same haunting mix that stared back from every mirror. He stumbled backward, clutching the badge. His old pilot wings were gone. The photo, the signature, everything replaced. He tried calling the airline office, but every number he dialed gave the same robotic message. User not recognized. His phone buzzed. A message flashed across the screen. You're being watched. Do not resist the transfer. Panic clawed at his chest.
Who was doing this?
Why him? He turned toward the window and froze. Across the street, a black sedan was parked. A man inside held a camera. His breath caught. He ducked away from the glass, heart pounding. This wasn't a prank. Someone was tracking him. His gaze fell to the uniform hanging on the door. Navy blue skirt. Silk blouse. Flight heels. The same outfit that appeared mysteriously days ago. He wanted to scream. To run. But a darker thought struck him. Maybe if I go, I'll find out who's doing this. He dressed slowly, every movement mechanical, zipping the skirt, buttoning the blouse, fixing his hair. The more he adjusted, the more the reflection in the mirror seemed to adjust first, like it knew the motions better than he did. And when he whispered his name, Marco, the reflection mouthed something else entirely. Marcia. His chest tightened. The drive to the airport was a blur. Everything looked the same, but people looked at him differently. The guard smiled. The attendant at the counter greeted him warmly. "Morning, Miss Rivera," she said. Marco just nodded numbly. He tried to use his pilot ID to access the restricted zone. It beeped red. The new badge, Marcia Rivera, turned the light green. He walked through the staff corridor in silence. But something about the air felt heavier. Every sound echoed louder. The click of his heels, not boots, against the tiles. The faint hum of intercom voices calling out flights. And then a whisper. "Captain."
He turned.
No one was there. Captain Marco, the voice again, soft, ghostly. It seemed to come from the PA system itself. He looked up. The intercom light flickered, off and on, like an eye watching him. His phone buzzed again. Another message. "Don't fight it. This is your final assignment." Cold sweat trickled down his back. He made it to gate 24, where the plane, Flight 782, stood gleaming under the floodlights. Crew members were boarding. He recognized none of them, yet they all greeted him like they'd known her forever. "Morning, Marcia. Ready for another long haul? Love your hair today." He forced a smile, trembling. "Yeah, just another day." Once inside, he moved down the aisle, staring at the empty seats. But one man sitting in 1A was already there. Sharp suit, silver watch, cold eyes. He smiled faintly when he saw Marco. "You made it," he said. Marco's breath hitched. "Who are you?" The man gestured to the seat beside him. "Sit. You'll want to hear this." Marco hesitated, but sat. The man leaned closer. "You were never supposed to fly that test route over Nevada, were you?" Marco froze. "How do you know about that?" The man smirked. "Because I was on that flight. The one that disappeared for 6 minutes on radar." Marco's skin went pale. "That's impossible. That incident was classified." "Exactly," the man whispered. "And now, you're living in the fallout. You weren't just flying a plane, you were carrying an experimental device. Something that rewrites identity, gender, memory, personality. A psychological calibration field." Marco stared at him, horrified. "The government buried it. But the exposure changed you, at a molecular level. You're merging with someone who never existed before. Marcia Rivera, the personality designed for emotional adaptability and social compliance. A prototype crew identity." "No," Marco whispered. "That's insane." The man smiled sadly. "Insane? Maybe. But look at yourself. You think that uniform was a joke? You think this assignment is coincidence?" Marco's vision blurred. His reflection in the cabin window, long hair, soft face, painted lips, was her, not him. He whispered, trembling. What happens now? The man leaned closer, his voice almost gentle. You finish the flight. And once you land, Marco dies. Marcia remains. The cabin lights flickered. A voice crackled over the intercom. Crew, prepare for takeoff. Marco looked toward the cockpit and froze. A woman sat in the pilot's seat. She turned slightly, meeting his eyes through the open door. His own face. His old face. Smiling. Ready to serve, Miss Rivera? She said sweetly. The engines roared.
The doors sealed.
And Marco realized the plane wasn't taking off into the sky. It was taking him away from reality itself. The engines hummed, low and steady, vibrating through Marco's entire body. He gripped the arms of the flight attendant seat tightly, nails digging into his palms. Each bump of the runway felt like a tremor in his very being. Cabin secure, the voice over the intercom said.
Calm.
Mechanical.
Deadly.
Marco glanced at the cockpit door. The pilot, himself, adjusted her uniform meticulously. She looked almost amused. The face was his, but the expression, the posture, even the energy, it was not Marco's. He wanted to scream, to run. But the aisle was narrow, the cabin doors locked, and the passengers, strangely calm, watched him as if expecting him to perform. One woman leaned over a seat. Excuse me, Miss Rivera? Coffee or juice? Marco swallowed, nodding, his lips trembling. He poured a cup mechanically. Every movement felt foreign. Every instruction he gave, over the intercom, to passengers, made his throat dry. His reflection in the window showed Marcia fully formed now. The uniform hugged his waist. The heels clicked with authority he didn't feel. His hands, once strong and confident, now moved with delicate precision. Who am I? He thought. Am I Marco? Or Marcia? The engines roared louder. The plane tilted, the nose lifting. Marco's stomach dropped as the runway disappeared beneath them. The city lights twinkled in the distance, a world he might never return to. Midway through the ascent, the man in 1A, the one who had spoken about the experimental flight, leaned closer again. You feel it, don't you? He whispered. The pull of the identity shift. The personality overlay. Marcia isn't just a disguise. She's a new operating system running in your mind. And it's fighting with the old you. Marco shook his head violently. I won't let it take over. The man's eyes were unnervingly calm. You already have. That's why you're responding automatically to commands, smiling at passengers, serving drinks, even obeying the cockpit pilot, yourself. You're caught in the calibration field. It's not reversible at 30,000 feet. Marco's hands shook violently. He reached for his own reflection in the cockpit glass, the face staring back, perfectly symmetrical, but not him. I need to get out. I can't. I'm not her. You don't have a choice, the man said. The more you fight, the more you'll fracture. Let the persona integrate or risk total collapse. By the time the beverage service ended, Marco felt as though his mind were two separate entities. He reached for a passenger's call button, only to find his fingers moving without thought. He smiled politely. Can I help you with anything else? The words were hers. The posture, hers. The voice, a perfect mix of soft timbre and polite intonation, not his. This isn't me, he thought, gripping the aisle seat. This is a puppet. I'm a puppet. Then the passenger across the aisle, a middle-aged man in a business suit, looked at him curiously. You're new, right? Never seen you before. Marco's stomach twisted. He opened his mouth to explain, to claim his identity, but the words that came out were Marcia's. Yes, it's my first flight on this route. I'm very excited to serve you. He froze mid-step. He tried to stop, but the body wouldn't listen. The cockpit door clicked. Marco turned to see the pilot, his own face, stepping out into the cabin. Her voice, his voice, came over the PA. Marcia, status check. He stumbled. The PA wasn't him speaking. It was her. He wanted to scream. I'm Marco. I'm Captain DeLuca. This isn't real. The pilot smiled faintly. You're safe. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do. The passengers clapped politely. Marco's stomach dropped. Not a single person suspected. Not a single one reacted with fear. I'm completely invisible as myself, he realized. Only Marcia exists here. He leaned against the seat, dizzy, feeling the edges of his mind blur. His memory of being a pilot, the long hours, the cockpit camaraderie, the pride, it was slipping. Every detail began to fade like smoke through fingers. A sudden alert blinked from the cockpit monitors. Turbulence ahead. The pilot turned to him. Marcia, please prepare the cabin. Marco's mind screamed. The real Marco wanted to override. He wanted to storm the cockpit, regain control, reclaim his life. But every fiber of his body obeyed. He moved, poured water into cups, adjusted passenger blankets, smiled politely. He followed the commands perfectly. Tears stung his eyes. The old him, Marco, was trapped beneath layers of calm, efficiency, and grace. A passenger asked softly, "Are you okay?" Marco wanted to lie. He wanted to scream. But he couldn't. He smiled. "I'm fine. Thank you for asking." Marcia had won a battle tonight, he realized. But the war, the true fight for identity, was just beginning. The cabin lights flickered as the plane cut through a sudden storm. Turbulence rattled the fuselage, sending a jolt through Marco's spine. He gripped the drink cart like a lifeline, heels clicking on the aisle with unnatural precision. Marcia's persona had taken over entirely. The calm, composed demeanor, the polite smile, the soft tone of voice. Yet beneath it, Marco's mind screamed. "Cabin secure," he announced automatically over the intercom, but the words felt alien in his mouth. A scream rang out from row 12. A young passenger had dropped a tablet, the device skittering down the aisle. Marco bent instinctively, catching it mid-roll. Applause from passengers followed. The efficiency of Marcia's training, the perfect poise, had saved the moment. But Marco's chest burned. He wasn't herself. He was performing someone else's life. Then the cockpit door opened. Marco froze. The pilot, his own face, calm and authoritative, stepped out into the cabin. But this time, something was different. Her eyes weren't welcoming. They were sharp, almost predatory. "Marcia," she said, but the voice carried a weight that made him stumble. "We have a problem." "What problem?" Marco's voice trembled. Half Marcia, half Marco. "The experimental overlay," the pilot said. "It's unstable. You're not integrating properly." The words hit like a thunderclap. Before he could respond, a flash of light streaked past the window. Lightning, yes, but different. Electric, almost unnatural. A sudden jolt shook the plane violently. Oxygen masks dropped from the ceiling with a metallic clatter. Passengers screamed. Marco's reflection in the aisle windows shimmered, and for a split second, his own masculine face appeared beneath the Marcia mask, eyes wide with panic. Then it vanished again. "He's slipping," Marco thought, heart hammering. The Marcia persona was fighting back with every fiber of his being. From the back of the cabin, a passenger's voice called out, "Miss Rivera, what's happening?" Marco moved to reassure them, but as he spoke, the words changed in midair. "We will be fine," he said, but the tone was neither his nor fully hers. It was something new, unknown, hybrid. A violent shudder ran through the plane. Warning lights flashed. The autopilot blinked off. Marco's hands flew to the controls, instinct versus training, but the cockpit door swung open again. The pilot looked him directly in the eyes. "Marcia or Marco, it doesn't matter anymore. Someone else is in control now." The words froze him. He realized with horrifying clarity he had no control. The overlay, the experiment, the transformation, it wasn't just a physical or psychological prank. It was bigger. Someone, somewhere, was guiding every heartbeat, every thought, every movement. The storm outside grew louder. Rain slammed against the windows like a drum of doom. Lightning illuminated the cabin, revealing faces of passengers frozen in panic, some gripping their seats, others staring at Marco with wide, fearful eyes. He tried to speak, to assert himself, to reclaim his identity, but no words came. Only the polished, calm voice of Marcia emerged. Please remain seated. Everything is under control. And in that moment, the plane lurched again, impossibly, unnaturally. The intercom crackled. A distorted voice whispered, "Welcome to your new life, Captain. There's no turning back." Marco's eyes darted to the window, then to the reflection beside him, and froze. In the glass, two faces stared back. One Marco, terrified, pleading. One Marcia, composed, smiling, and between them, something new, unrecognizable, watching, waiting. The plane tilted sharply, the storm howling around them. Marco, half pilot, half flight attendant, half himself, felt the last thread of control snap. This isn't just a flight. This is the end or the beginning. The screen fades to black. Text overlay. Will Marco survive? Or is Marcia here to stay? Comment your predictions below.